All right, joining me, Senators Tommy Tuberville of Alabama and Mr. Tim Sheehy of Montana. I want to say hello to Happy New Year to both of you, especially Senator Sheehy. Welcome to Kudlow and welcome to the U.S. Senate. Mr. Tuberville, Happy New Year to you, sir. Okay. Let me start. We have, I'm not sure I understand this, but we have sound Trump on the one big beautiful bill. No, yeah, let's play that. Trump today on the one big beautiful bill. Let's start with that subject.
Well, I favor one bill. I also want to get everything passed. And, you know, there are some people that don't necessarily agree with it. So I'm open to that also. My preference is one big, as I say, one big beautiful bill.
You appeared to open the door in your radio interview yesterday for a two-bill approach. Is it still your preference for one big beautiful bill, as you have said?
Well, I like one big beautiful bill, and I always have, I always will. But if two is more certain, it does go a little bit quicker.
All right, so Senator Tuberville, what's going on here? I personally, as you probably know, am very strongly in favor of one big beautiful bill. I think that's what Mr. Trump's first choice is. That's what Speaker Johnson wants. That's what Ways and Means Chair Jason Smith want. But I see resistance in the Senate, and I'm not sure I understand this resistance. Can you help me out?
Well, I'm all with you, Larry. I think we need one. But again, we got to go with the House first. They're the ones that's going to make the decision on this. They've got to get it done before us. If you go back and look at history, Ronald Reagan did this. Now they drugged their feet. I think you might have even been working for Ronald Reagan at that time, and they had two bills and they didn't get both of them done. Same thing with President Trump. Back in 2016, they worried about health care. Paul Ryan drug his feet. And they didn't get the tax bill done in time to really save Congress in the two-year election. So I'm all for one. Let's get it done.
Senator Tuberville, you are a person after my heart. You're such a clear-thinking senator. It's really remarkable. Really, so happy to hear you take that position. Now, Senator Sheehy, if you disagree, it's okay. This is the Kudlow Show. We believe in free speech. But I prefer you to talk about one big, beautiful bill. We don't want to let the middle-class blue-collar boom, we don't want to let that get away. We promised tax cuts during the campaign. As you well know, I'm sure you ran on it. You were a guest on this show a couple of times. What you promise is you got to keep those promises, and Mr. Trump understands that. And I frankly think it's not such a hard thing to do. You're basically just extending the tax cuts, and then you're going to put on some money for the border and so forth. What do you think, Senator Sheehy?
No, I agree 100%. Agree with Coach. Listen, we have a mandate. And from a popular vote to the electoral vote to the Senate to the House, we swept the table in this election, and people want results. So we shouldn't be bogging ourselves down in process. We got to get things done and get things done fast. And honestly, if it's one bill, two bills, 15 bills, at the end of the day, let's get it done. And right now, it sounds like the momentum is behind one big, beautiful bill. So let's get it done.
All right, terrific stuff. Thank you. Now, I want to turn to some more exotic things in Mr. Trump's news conference today. First of all, here's a president on, this is such a nice sound to me, the new Gulf of America. Hang on, here it comes.
We have a massive deficit with Mexico, and we help Mexico a lot. They're essentially run by the cartels, and can't let that happen. Mexico's really in trouble. We're going to be announcing a future date pretty soon. We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name.
Senator Sheehy, I'll tell you, talk about big, beautiful sounds, big, beautiful rings, the Gulf of America. But, I mean, there's something to this, just like there always is with President Trump. I mean, he is pushing President Sheinbaum. I think he's pushing her very hard. She hasn't really done anything for us on the southern border. The troops aren't there yet. He's threatening a tariff on that. But then again, after all, Senator Sheehy, when the Gulf of Mexico was named in the 16th century, there was no United States of America. Now there is a very important United States of America, and you might even say United States of America first. So what do you think about the Gulf of America, Senator Sheehy?
Well, I think it's a great idea, and I was very happy to hear you mention the Monroe Doctrine in your opening statement, because that's something that we've let slip away as America. For a long time, our doctrine has said we are going to control our hemisphere. We are going to be the arbiter of what happens or does not happen in our region. And as we know, in the past 20 years, China, Russia, and a lot of other people that do not have the best interests of America and our economy have started to take over not just economic interests, but in fact military interests in our region. We have Russian ships going to the port in Venezuela and Cuba all the time. So we need to make sure we reinvigorate our presence throughout the hemisphere and throughout the world. And this is part of that movement. Support it.
Senator Tuberville, as you may know, with the respect to the Monroe Doctrine, it was later on President John Quincy Adams who codified it into American policy. It was about European interference. But I would dare say, with respect to the Panama Canal and with respect to the rest of Latin America, it's also about Chinese interference. And the Bidens never did a darn thing, while China, as I said, they're nosing around throughout. They're building bases. They run the two Panama Canal locks to the Atlantic and the Pacific. It's about time somebody said something about this, Senator Tuberville.
Well, exactly right. It's been a long time. I can remember my dad was very upset. He was a career military guy, and when Jimmy Carter gave up the Panama Canal, I'd never seen him that mad. But I've spent a lot of time, Larry, in the Panama Canal and in Panama the last couple of years. They had a president down there that was very pro-China. Now we've got a president down there. I went to his inauguration back in July, Molino. He is all for President Trump. He understands what's going on. He's tried to help us. The previous president signed 28 contracts with the Chinese. They didn't fulfill but one of those, 28 in 5 years' time. So at the end of the day, what's going to happen? President Trump's going to go in and help Panama. We've got to take the Panama Canal back. We've got to do something, because if we were to happen to go to war with China over Taiwan, and they were to shut the Panama Canal down, we'd have to go 8,000 to 10,000 miles longer just to get things back to the war zone if we had to go from the East Coast to China.
Wow, that's a great point, sir. That's a great point. Let me just play some tape on these points from Mr. Trump today at his presser. Take a listen, please, gentlemen.
What took place at the Panama Canal, Jimmy Carter gave it to them for $1. And they were supposed to treat us well. They charge more for our ships than they charge for ships of other countries. They charge more for our Navy than they charge for navies of other countries, because China's basically taken it over. China's at both ends of the Panama Canal. Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. You look outside, you have China ships all over the place. You have Russian ships all over the place. We're not letting that happen. The people are going to probably vote for independence or to come into the United States.
All right. Senator Sheehy, by the way, God bless you as a former Navy SEAL and a veteran, and you served in a number of theaters. I think the Greenland stuff, Greenland is, I think, a key point for American interest. It's a chokehold, if you will. And here, too, China and Russia nosing around Greenland. And I know that part of this is for strategic minerals and so forth, rare earths. But they're also looking to set up naval operations, Air Force operations. They know what they're doing. China now is calling itself an Arctic power, which is bloody nonsense, if you ask me. Senator Sheehy, what do you make of that? The Greenland story, how do you see it?
Well, again, this is another point of strategic interest for America. During World War II and the Korean War and all the way through the Cold War, we had strategic locations all over the Pacific and all over the Atlantic, to include Greenland and Iceland. And those locations were absolutely critical for our ability to control the Atlantic during World War II and throughout the Cold War. Just like the Panama Canal, these are critical military strategic points of pressure that literally control the world. The world moves through the oceans, the vast majority of our trade. So it's not just military, it's also economic. And as we've seen in the past few years, China is taking unprecedented actions to expand their sphere of maritime influence all over the world. And it's not just in the South China Sea. As we know, it's in Panama, and they're going to continue to push that globally. So we should be doing everything we can to revive our global footprint in places like Iceland and Greenland and Panama and across the Pacific. We've had them there before for most of the 20th century, and we foolishly have given them up in the past several decades.
Yeah, you know, Senator Tuberville, you may know during World War II, the United States occupied Greenland in order to keep the Nazis out, or the Axis powers out, including the Nazis. You also probably know Greenland wants independence from Denmark. I mean, that game's going to be over one way or the other. Why can't we, the United States, I don't know, we have to take them over, but we could set up an alliance, you know, that would include national security, it would include trade, it would include investment and so forth. That seemed to me make an awful lot of sense.
Well, it's all about national security. We finally got a leader in the White House, Larry. It's somebody that's got some negotiation skills, some diplomacy. He's putting a team around him that's really going to help. But there's no better place to start than Greenland. But if you just look what China's done, I just returned last summer from Argentina. They pretty much bought up everything around Argentina, the Arctic Circle. We have got to get in the game. We have not been in the game for 4 years. President Trump's going to get us back in the game. He's going to make some tough decisions. It sounds crazy of the things he's trying to do, but he's spot on, because we are in trouble, not just domestically, but internationally, with everything going on with China and Russia. And of course Iran and North Korea. It's going to be a fight, and it's going to be a fight that we're going to have to back President Trump on all this and give him an opportunity to make some headway in international diplomacy.
You know, Senator Sheehy, as Senator Tuberville is suggesting, here we are. President Trump is still President-elect Trump, although it has been certified, of course. But he is reestablishing, it seems to me, reestablishing America's footprint on world affairs. He's not invading, he's not bombing, but he's reestablishing America's footprint. Most particularly, part that I really like is how he's reestablishing our footprint in Mexico and Latin America and throughout South America. These are things that are absolutely vital. These are America First interests, and they have been neglected these past 4 years, Senator Sheehy.
No, you're absolutely right, and it goes back further than 4 years. It goes back decades. You know, Jimmy Carter, obviously, we're about to see him laid in state here, but, you know, him giving back the Panama Canal in the 70s was a huge mistake, and that kicked off the dominoes of this movement we've seen in the last 40 years, where powers around the world have been giving back key interests that are core to their policies. And of course, the America First agenda centers around what's best for the American people. And it's not too much for the American voter to ask their government to do what's right for them, what's right for American business, what's right for the American border, what's right for the American people. That should always come first. And what we're seeing here, before Trump's even in office, he's already enacting policies that are going to put the American people and their grocery prices, their gas prices, and their front door first. And that's what it's about time is put the interests of our voters ahead of those of the rest of the world.
Yes, sir. Amen to all that. Thank you, gentlemen. Senators Tommy Tuberville and Tim Sheehy. We're most grateful to have you. We appreciate it very much.